Hello, everyone. It's Rafael Gutierrez, Dr. Karate. Welcome to my channel. Today, I'm actually going to address something that I've addressed before. It's just as I looked on the internet and tried to find topics to talk about, this came up somewhere, and it got me to think of a better way to do stuff. Now, before I did the video, I actually went to a couple go-to books, and some of these you may have yourself. Some of you may have been trying to find them. So I just wanted to show you the three main books that I did use. And the reason I actually use this is this. There are certain things that people come about and say over and over again. And so people start believing it, not necessarily because it's right or because there's any evidence to it, but because, well, people hear it so much. It's actually Thomas Paine's A Common Sense. You hear something enough, it doesn't matter if all the evidence against it. People believe it because they just heard it. Common sense, by the way, not a good thing. So one of the big things that I want to do is, well, was address the topic of do some of the exercises in Naha decrease life expectancy? Now, I do not practice any of the Naha exercises, just a style karate. It wasn't mixed with Naha for some reason. And so I don't really, by me saying that there was no evidence that suggests this, quite the contrary, I saw some other stuff. I don't have anything to gain by it not causing changes in longevity, well, not causing decreases in longevity. And so it's one of those things where if you're looking at evidence, if someone doesn't have anything to gain by it, it tends to be a little more valuable than someone who's trying to sell you something. For instance, if I was trying to sell my style to you and I was, yes, look, I can prove that this is not good for you, that would be a little more questionable. Or someone who does Naha style Goju-ryu, Wichi-ryu, trying to tell you, look, this doesn't, they may get a benefit out of that. Me, as I don't do anything with Naha, except admire the styles, I really don't have a benefit for selling this. So let's actually start with this. What is happening with karate practitioners today? And is there a decrease in life expectancy in people who do styles like Wichi-ryu and Goju-ryu? And one of the things I will tell you is, from what we've seen, it doesn't seem to be the case. If you actually look at the Blue Zone studies, the person that they say is the ideal way men could age was a Wichi-ryu practitioner. If you think about it, if they're saying this is how, every man should try to age like this man, and he's a Wichi-ryu practitioner, already that tends to get rid of the idea that there's something wrong with these exercises. On top of that, we have a lot of older Goju-ryu practitioners that are healthy and are still doing a lot of different things that, for instance, me at 45, I can't do. And so, the style itself doesn't seem to be what causes someone to not age as well as another. And so it has to be something else. Now, some people will actually say genetics. And one of the things that we find with a lot of aging studies is genetics may play a role in it, but it's minimal. And when you're dealing with a place like Okinawan, you're not dealing with a huge difference between two people, especially when you look at the geographical locations. I've gone to Okinawa a few times, and I can tell you that me being a heavy American who drives everywhere, I can actually walk from the beaches in front of Naha all the way to the Shuri Castle. Some of you have probably done that. You take the I don't think we can do the entire old path anymore, but a lot of it is still there. And if I could do this, and I did it in August, so I was covered in sweat because it's humid and hot. If I could do it, someone who grew up walking would be able to do it pretty easy. And that would be the farthest distance. If you're actually in Naha, the area that used to be considered Naha, and you want to walk over to Tomari, you pretty much cross a bridge. So the geological location isn't really an issue. Now, what was the difference between Naha, Tomari, and Shuri? And one of the things I actually did is, a lot of times we talk about Tomari, but when I actually started looking at these different books, I noticed that what most people call Tomari really wasn't Tomari proper. It was usually Kumamura, the Chinese area. And so you do have a little bit of difference between Naha, what they call Naha, the Port Naha, Kumemura, what most people were calling Tomari, it seems, and Shuri. If you think about it, the Naha would have been more of the places where you'd have merchants going from Okinawa to Japan, to China, to Korea, and coming back. You're talking about merchants and actually some of the wealthier people who were involved in shipping. If you think of the jobs available in, even today, in areas where you have shipping, they are physically demanding. And yes, there are accidents that can happen in certain areas like that. There is actually a lot of things coming in and out. What the Kumemura and Tomari were actually known for is being the academic area. It's actually where classical Chinese was taught. Some of the old schools were there. And traditionally, a lot of the people who were sent to China on scholarship were from Kumemura. Shuri was the castle region, and where most of the people working there would have actually been highly educated. So what we see is we do see a variation on education, potential education, I should say. If you think about it, if you have a lot of money, you can send your kids to study somewhere else. But what you actually may be seeing, what you would see is the availability for education would have been a little less in certain areas. Think about living next to a university versus living far away. Now with the internet, we can get a lot more access to everything, but the people, having access to the people tends to be a little harder. And so that's actually one of the big things. That's one of the main differences, a slight variation on levels of education. Now, before we go into that, let's actually look at the katas. People actually blame Naha style exercises, but if you do a karate, which is Shuri, usually Shuri branches are mixed, Tomari, Shuri, and Naha. And so you are doing the same exercises in Shuri as in the Naha. So it doesn't seem to be the case. If not, you'd have really high life expectancies in Tomari and Kumemura, and lower in the port, Naha, and the capital. But that's not what you see. So as it has to be something else, we can look at the education, and that's fun things that we have today. We can decide to look at something like education and see if it has a effect on longevity. And here's one of the things that ends up happening. If you go study gerontology, if you read up on healthy aging, you will find, and it doesn't have, they found it if you actually put out the access to health, access to higher paid jobs, for some reason, having a higher level of education does increase longevity. So if you think about it, Shuri and Tomari would have had higher levels of education at a younger age back in the classical periods, back before Meiji Reformation, back before Okinawa became part of Japan. So what people are saying as, oh, well, some people in Naha may have had a lower life expectancy than Tomari and Shuri, may actually just be due to access to education. Not necessarily that they didn't have access to it, but it would have been harder than if you were in a small group of people where these people are constantly being sent to China and coming back with new techniques, new information. So I guess in conclusion is, if we are looking for why someone may have been aging less from a Tomari style, we have to look at the entire picture. We can't just say it's one thing. We have to look at everything and decide, well, does it make sense? And is it still the same thing today? If we're having a lot of people older doing Nahate styles like Wichiru and Goju-ryu, then it probably isn't the exercises. I actually did a video earlier on some of the exercises that they did, and I found that not only did they not seem to have an effect on other people who are otherwise healthy, but they were actually some exercises that were used to help improve lung function. And so some of these exercises may actually be beneficial to do if you are trying to live long. Interesting thing though, on an aside, right now with COVID, we're actually running into a lot of other things. A lot of people are isolated, and karate actually has an interesting effect that can actually happen. You think about if you do martial arts, any martial art, even not just karate, what you need to train. Now, a lot of people will say, oh, well, you need a uniform, you need the equipment. The truth is, really, you don't need too much equipment. I have a makiwara in my living room. That's what I use. It's not necessary. All I need is a little space to do exercise, and that's actually one of the big benefits that most of us who do martial arts can actually uh, offer people right now, especially kids who may not necessarily be able to do exercises. We can actually teach one-on-one. Uh, we can teach karate or martial arts one-on-one and show these kids how to do certain techniques. We can actually do this, then send them home. They can actually practice. We have Zoom people. I know a lot of people are doing that. And we can correct the different techniques one-on-one, watch them later, and pretty much offer some people an exercise program, which they could do at home with little to no equipment. Well, I hope you enjoyed this, and I'm always looking for questions. If not, I'm going to go back to anatomy. You think I'm going to do gripping. If you have any questions, please write them down, and have a nice day. What do you think?